am from beyond. Listen, and all you desire will be yours. Welcome to Spider-Dan and the Secret Balls. Prepare for Prattle.
Do you remember this? This is an obscure one, but on the side of the box, I remember this on my Superman costume, it actually said, "Do not attempt to fly." They printed that as a warning, because kids were putting it on and going off the roofs, you know.
Welcome to Prattle World. I am your host, the ever-amazing, ever-spectacular Spider-Dan. And in this podcast, I spotlight entertainment's best-kept secrets that a mainstream audience may find boring. And welcome to the very first Comic Observations, where we take a step back and observe comic books and the comic industry with open eyes. And have we got a slobberknocker of a podcast for you today, brother? As I speak to two sultans of the squared circle, the writers of Invasion from Planet Wrestletopia. It is the Alliance of Violence, Ed Kuehnel and Matt Entin. Welcome to the podcast, guys. I hope that was an introduction worthy of your skills.
That was the best intro I think we've ever gotten on a podcast. Thank you.
Well, I felt like I've got to do a decent promo for you guys, much like the wrestlers within the book.
I feel like we need to clarify that we're not really violent after that.
Well, I pulled your own nickname from your own book, so I was like, that was my favorite of all the nicknames you've given yourselves within the book. So
that was fun. Yeah. So, I mean, we have 6 issues to the miniseries Invasion from Planet Wrestletopia. Yeah, we came up with wrestling nicknames for everybody in the sort of the credits, and it got to be kind of a pain in the ass after a while.
And also, we didn't really ask for anyone's approval, so I feel like a lot of people were surprised when the edition finally premiered and they had some Miami hitman, and they've never been to Miami.
It kind of it spoke to me with my comic book history. It very much felt like the Marvel way, where they would always give people a nickname like Stan the Manly or Jazzy.
Oh yeah,
that sort of stuff. So it was brilliant. It sent me back in a kind of a time warp, which I really, really enjoyed. So welcome to the show, guys. Thank you for contacting me, and thank you for bringing your book to my attention, because it was excellent. Lots of fun. If you are a hardcore wrestling fan, you can find a lot to love about this. There's references, there's pastiches, there's all sorts of stuff. If you like The Wrestler with Mickey Rourke, if you like WWE, if you like WCW in their heyday, this is the book for you. But also Aliens.
We've heard other people, when they talk about the comic, have sort of compared it to Wrestling meets Galaxy Quest.
Yes, yeah.
Once I think Wrestling meets Mars Attacks, to give people an idea of kind of where it's coming from. It's an irreverent story about a wrestler who declares himself galactic champion of the universe during a promo on live TV, and of course the promo goes out into the TV signal goes out to outer space and is intercepted by Wrestletopians. So that kicks off. That's the incident that kicks things off.
Yeah, that's your inciting incident, and what a kind of a genius idea as well, that this kind of planet of Wrestletopians and their kind of culture is all kind of based around this gladiatorial combat. We see that in a lot of kind of sci-fi stuff, but never on the kind of the scale of the wrestling world and the professional wrestling world as we know it on Earth.
Yeah, it's been an absolute blast, and Matt and I have worked on. I mean, we've worked on, as our day jobs, we both work in the video game industry as writers, and so we do a lot of storytelling for our clients, which is really fun. Together, we have kind of come up with our own stories, and we really, are proud of just kind of a lot of the work we've done together for fun, whether it was, writing screenplays for fun but Wrestletopia was an idea we came up with together that we're like, we've got to do something with this. And comic books was the most feasible way to kind of put it out there in the world, have it exist, and have people be able to just pick it up and read it and enjoy it. And that has worked brilliantly so far. We finished the series at 6 issues. It's out there in the world, and we're really proud of it. Really excited to have it out there.
Yeah, and so you should be. I wanted to ask you both, as creators. Obviously, like you've said, you've worked on various video games. I believe you worked on the Mario Rabbids video game.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
And is it Leisure Suit Larry as well? You worked on one of those?
That was the first thing Ed and I ever did together. Was Leisure Suit Larry magna cum laude.
Wow.
And then we also worked on an unfortunately canceled sequel after that.
Oh, that's a shame.
Yeah. We've collaborated a lot since then, as independent contractors within the industry. But, we're always, I think part of what attracted us to doing this, as our own project, as Ed sort of said, is we're always working for other people. We're working as part of a larger team, whereas here we sort of like had an opportunity to deliver pure, undiluted Matt and Ed to the world and see how people responded.
What started you guys on the road to Wrestletopia? It's quite an open question, but Matt, if you want to start us off and just say how you got to this point.
If we want to go far back enough, both of us were wrestling fans as kids, and there's a 7-year age difference between us. So, when Ed was watching wrestling, it was more sort of like the Territories era. And then when I started watching wrestling as a kid, it was the Rock and Wrestling, Hulk Hogan era. And then, I sort of continued watching on and off through. Sorry, that's my dog. I don't know if you can hear the sort of Attitude Era. And that's sort of, where the comic itself takes place mostly during that Attitude Era. But Ed sort of had this idea over a decade ago now of what if the planet was invaded by, alien wrestlers, and they put a steel cage around Earth so we couldn't escape. And I absolutely love that image, and things just kind of snowballed from there. And then we sort of constructed this whole idea that maybe there's, this guy, and he's like a heel and he's super egotistical. And, the night of a big pay-per-view, he's told he's not going to get the belt. So he makes his own belt. It's the Galactic Championship belt. And then that satellite signal travels out. So it all kind of like that inciting incident sort of grew out of this basic concept of a planet of wrestlers that invades Earth. And then it's undergone all these different, formats. Like, so we wrote a whole screenplay, and then we did a cartoon series pitch, and then we did a comic pitch, and then we did it as a TV series again. And then Ed finally said, you know what, let's just go for it. Let's just put our own money on the line, and we'll actually get this thing made. And, we will pay to have, professional artists do this. We're not going to do this, halfway. Like, we're going to pay to have people with industry experience actually do this. So it looks, even though when we first put it out, it was self-published, like it looks like a professional product.
Oh, it's gorgeous. The artwork is stunning. I'm blanking on the artist's name right now.
So for the first 3 issues, it was Dan Scotty and Marissa Louise. So Dan Scotty did the art, Marissa Louise did the colors, and then Dave Lamphere did the letters. And then for the remaining issues, it was Kendall Good and on art, Gio Butler on colors, and Sal Cipriano on letters.
They've incredible work, all of them, because it's such a colorful book, and it's got so much vibrancy and energy, and it really does grab your attention, especially like the finale wrestling match. is fantastic. It's this big extra sized issue, so you're getting more for your money, bang for your buck, because it is just wall-to-wall wrestling action with the earth on the line. That's the true championship. It's saving the planet. And I love it. Absolutely. So is it the same for you, Ed, in your road to Wrestletopia?
Yeah, it's, as Matt said, I was absolutely obsessed with it as a kid, and that started in the late 70s when wrestling was this local or regional affair. My most vivid memories, and I was lucky enough to grow up in a part of the U.S. that had its own territory. So it was the Pacific Northwest Wrestling, which was under sort of the NWA umbrella at the time. Like, we had the Pacific Northwest champion, but Ric Flair was recognized as, and he would breeze through town every once in a while to, to beat up one of our local bums and escape with the belt. Or, a lot of people have read the comic and sort of mentioned this, that it reads kind of like a love letter to wrestling, a very gentle satire, but also like a love letter to it. And that was interesting to hear. It was gratifying to hear, because I think, Matt and I both have a ton of appreciation and nostalgia for wrestling. And and so it was, and like I said before, it was really just like, I just want this story to exist. And because if you write a screenplay, it's fun to actually write a screenplay. I enjoy it, but no one wants to read it, right? Like, even your parents don't want to read your screenplay. It's not interesting, but a comic book is really cool and interesting. And we got really lucky with the artist, Dan Scotti and Marissa Louise, and then Kendall Good and Gio Butler and our letterers. Matt said Dave Lanfear, Sal Cipriano. They did, amazing work. And we found out, it's hard to keep a group of indie artists together, even over a miniseries, because everyone's freelancing and everyone's juggling projects. So we kind of have like these two different teams of artists, plus a sort of a stand-in or two to help out with inks or colors. But it's a pretty seamless, I think, transition between issue 3 and 4 as far as art goes. Dan's and Kendall's styles aren't wildly different. So, it's been a real learning experience. Like you mentioned, the jumbo-sized 6-issue, which I think works because you do have this climactic finale, and like the fate of the planet hinges on the outcome of a wrestling pay-per-view, which is really fun. But it was also like kind of poor planning, by Matt and I. Were like, well, how many how many pages does this whole thing need, and how many issues is that? And how many panels we need? And it was our first time. We tried really hard to spec this out. So we have like a 32-page first issue, and then the next 4 issues are like normal, like 24. And then the last one is like, God knows how many pages this last issue is. I forget. It's
49, I think. Say 49.
It's a lot of pages. And I want, you can, and there's one person who, like, I felt this way. No one else noticed, but one critic noticed. He's like, there were a few parts that felt a little rushed. And I was like, damn it. We should have added another 8 pages. I knew we should. 56-page.
Well, this kind of brings me neatly onto my next question, because you are kind of more experienced with maybe writing screenplays or writing video games. Did you find there was any difficulty transitioning from those mediums into a different writing medium of comics? Because obviously it's a lot more kind of visual, and it's a different kind of form of storytelling, with timing and pacing being a key factor in them as well. Did you find that difficulty? Did you find difficulties in that, or did you find strengths in it as well, or a bit of both?
There's definitely like the fact that we'd written about, I don't know, Ed, 5 screenplays together before this. So like there's definitely like that skill set. Like, video games are a totally different ball of wax, because, you're dealing with non-linear storytelling. And also, like, brevity is the word of the day there, because, people don't want to, only Hideo Kojima can get away with like a 25-minute cutscene. We cannot. So I think there were a lot of skills that we sort of developed writing screenplays that we were able to bring to the comics medium. But then at the same time, I think it was really important for us to work with people who had a lot of industry experience, like Dan, like Kendall, because they could really, they have a good sense of how to tell these stories visually, so like we try to provide a minimal amount of visual direction for them. We didn't want to get overly specific because we just kind of trusted them that they knew best as to how to sort of tell the story in a static visual medium like comics.
Yeah, I loved working on a comic book. It is, and I hate to say this, if you're a comic book professional, please, plug your ears for a second, but it's so much simpler than a video game. I mean, with a video game, you could be working with dozens and dozens of artists trying to create this 3D world in which the player has lots of input on what's going to happen. And with a comic book, it was like a couple artists that you're working with, mostly one at a time, and Matt and I, and it was, the comic books are very, very difficult to do well. And I understand, that some people say it's a miracle when a comic book gets finished, and I can kind of get that. But as far as like the production end of things, working with like 4 people was a treat. Working in a linear medium, was a real treat for a change. Just not having things be 3D was really nice. Well, obviously we lacked the experience of writing comic books, which is important in so many ways. But I think we did some good things. In other words, like we avoided, I think, some common mistakes. For example, we didn't try to cram too many panels on a page, and it's weird. We actually, I think, almost made the opposite mistake, where it's like, this page had 2 people talking. We probably could have had more than 4 panels on this page, but I think that was the most difficult part of it, is trying to figure out how to structure your panels and how much real estate to give to a given scene, to a given moment. That's really tricky, and I'm sure there's a million other things that we don't have a handle on. But it was a pleasure to work on a linear medium involving like 3 artists.
Yeah. You got rid of all the cooks. Too many cooks. Now maybe just the right amount of cooks.
It was also like, for Matt and I, it was really kind of our, we're writers and we love our jobs. We're very lucky, and we're work for hire. We mostly do what the client wants. And now we were kind of like, well, we're paying for this. So we trusted our artist a lot, but we're like, hey, this is our story. It's our script. And we can kind of do what we want. And if you can imagine something, chances are your artist can draw it for you. So it's, that was also refreshing. In video games, it's really, anything is possible also in video games, but with a 3D game, you really have to think about your limitations and your resources. Even just making like a small 3D object can take an artist like a couple days, and versus just drawing something that, or, I don't know if you want me to, if I can swear, but just having your artist just draw something crazy in 2D is a lot less stressful on your schedule. It was just really freeing and really fun.
Well, I always think that like comic books are sometimes probably the best medium, other than maybe a novel, because it doesn't, there's no massive budget for CGI, or anything like that, or any computer graphics. It's like, it's usually like just a small group of people like you guys putting pen to paper, and that's it, and that's all you need. But you can tell the smallest and the largest stories in comics, and that's what I've always enjoyed about them. Is you've got planets crashing into each other, but then you can have a small noir crime story on the other end of that as well.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite mediums, if not my favorite medium to tell stories in, I think. And I think you guys made an excellent choice to bring this to the comic book medium. It does have a lot of sensibilities, like it's kind of like a cult film almost, like Plan 9 from Outer Space or something, but nowhere near that bad. But it has those kind of that feel, that kind of, and again, the title's it grabs you, it grabs your attention. I think that's obviously good promotionally, but also it tells me everything I need to know about the story. I go, invasion from Planet Wrestletopia, aliens, wrestlers, done. I'm sold. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. You've done all the promotion just in that one title alone. I think that just really helps. I wanted to ask, because you said that you don't have that much experience with comics or the comic book medium or the comic book business. Like when you guys were kids, did you enjoy reading comic books or get into that when again when you were into wrestling? Were you? Because I do see like with wrestling stars, there's a lot of kind of creative kind of paths diverge. So you might have like Chris Jericho's like a rock star. You'll have people that are into comic book, wrestlers are into comic books, and then you'll have people that want to be in TV and film. But yeah, did you have any kind of favorite kind of comic books or characters or series? I'll start with you again, Matt.
So I don't know how this probably reflects very poorly on me. But as a kid, I loved nothing more than Simon Bisley's run on Lobo.
Nice.
That was like my, I was 11, 12, 13 around the time. My parents probably should have been monitoring what I was reading. But yeah, I was a pretty avid collector. My uncle actually worked at a comic shop.
Oh, amazing.
So he'd reserve titles for me. And so, I was a pretty avid collector for about 3-4 years. And then, it was something before we started doing this. Like I stopped buying, the monthlies, but, I'd get like a graphic novel or a trade paperback, every few months, because it was still like a medium that I had a lot of love for. And then of course, since we started this again, we've really just, taken a deep dive into the medium and, explored it, because, a lot has changed since sort of like, that the 90s comic boom when I was collecting. Yeah. And it's just this felt like such the story we were telling and comic books, the two just felt like such a natural fit.
Absolutely. It just goes together.
Yeah, the colorfulness of wrestling and just sort of the over-the-top storytelling just felt like, comic books were just such a natural medium for us to explore that.
Yeah, and often professional wrestling companies do produce their own comics or get other people to produce their comics. And probably just as weird and wacky as this one.
Yeah, Kendall, who did issues 4 through 6, he actually worked on Boom Comics' WWE title. So it's just like that's why we gravitated towards him, because we don't have to explain anything to him. He's already a fan. He knows how to bring drama to a wrestling match. Yeah, I love, if you look at like when Kendall took over the title, you look at his art, we didn't have to sort of pitch him ideas for like what these random sort of Wrestletopian extras gimmicks could be. He had, like every gimmick, that's been used 100 times in the industry in his back pocket. And he just applied it to all of our little sort of extra characters.
I love, I think one of my favorites is the dominatrix, I think it is. It's probably my favorite with with her like little slave character. Love it. Absolutely. I think that's an amazing little, again, like quite a small role within the story and within the book, but I just got, and what I really love as well is, like you were saying, like Ed was saying, that you guys, there's a lot of satire in there and a lot of kind of poking fun and some fair kind of criticisms as well, I think, while still, a loving, love letter. It's still, you still go, well, this could be better, or it's a shame they do that in the business, or things like that. But I really love the ads in the back. It just reminds me again of those old comics where it'd be like, buy these X-ray specs, Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of influence. Well, with the single issues right now that are for sale digitally on Comixology, they have this exclusive back matter that we won't reprint in the trade. But like you said, we have some some sort of ad parodies and like interviews, and it's very heavily influenced by wrestling magazines of like the 80s and 90s, which both Matt and I find absolutely hilarious. I was buying them constantly when I was a kid. They'd be at the convenience store, and like 4 or 5 titles a month. But it was just, I mean, the magazines are hilarious to go through now. They'll have like babyface columnists and heel columnists in these magazines, and they'll have just the most ridiculous, interviews, because most of the magazines were kayfabe. They were kind of keeping up this pretense that wrestling was, neither scripted nor choreographed, nor there were no characters. They're great fun, and that's what I think most of that back matter is influenced by, are these hilarious magazines that we collected and did a lot of research from while we were making Wrestletopia.
One of my favorite bits, like, as much as I love the story, part of me was like, I can't wait to get to those ads. what weird ads or fact files or whatever is in the back, I can't wait to kind of read. But yeah, it's fantastic. And the one with there's almost kind of like a sexy album cover, which just genius.
There was this weird time where every like wrestler had to put out a rock album, or and specifically, I actually bought a record from Michael P.S. Hayes, who made Bad Street. Michael Hayes of the Fabulous Freebirds, who had, tried to position himself as a sex symbol and a rocker, and I actually bought his single. It was like a little record of his Bad Street USA. But I remember he has some kind of an ad where he's almost naked, and
it's funny because you don't have to pitch it up too much for it to turn into comedy. Like if you look at ads for Michael P.S. Hayes' album, like we really like only turned up the ridiculousness 10%, because it almost like it's at this point in history, like it's ventured into self-parody.
Yeah. No, I just think just a genius idea. I love some of the characters in it as well. Like, is it Don Long Fong? Am I saying
Don Fong Wong.
Fong Long. Sorry.
Fong Wong.
Fong. I do apologize. Terrible.
Apologies to Don.
Yes, that's well. But I loved this kind of elder wrestler who's kind of been through it. He's seen everything. He's done everything. And he's. You always see like in the wrestling, there's always like they tend to kind of go with like either a national gimmick or like a racial gimmick. And I love that this character's like, I play this like evil, guy from China, and he's like, I'm Hawaiian. I'm not even close to Chinese. I think there was a wrestler passed away recently. Was it Umaga or Unaga or something? I think it was, and he was like, yes.
No. That was a fictional wrestler from our comic book. Sorry.
I
know who you're talking about.
Yeah. The guy in the WWF, and he had the kind of tribal look, and I think he was like the. But he
Samoan.
Yeah, he was like from Detroit or something, but they were like made him out like he was this guy from the bush in Africa or something, and it's like yeah, sure, whatever. But obviously, I don't think that sort of thing would happen as much nowadays. Obviously, that was a way to sell things back in the day.
Super common for some reason to have Hawaiian wrestlers posing as Japanese wrestler, being from Japan or being from somewhere, from Asia, or Native American. Like, just I get people just went with it.
Yeah.
I guess if you're traveling, doing shows in the Midwest and small towns, people weren't too questioning of it. But
no, I guess not.
super common.
True.
it just felt like we sort of needed to at least, we didn't make a huge deal about it, but we need to address some of like the troubling racial politics of 80s wrestling.
Yeah, but I appreciate that you take the time out to just say this was a thing. We don't necessarily agree with that thing, but it did happen. It existed. But then you don't hang on it too long. And I was talking before with Ed before we started about there's some serious stuff in the book. There's talk of substance abuse and injuries and egos and things that would normally affect a real wrestler's career, or like proper and heartbreaking kind of situations, like he's trying to prove himself to his dad, who was a wrestler, and he wants to be just like him. But then he's kind of thrown it all away because of his ego. He can't get around himself, can't get out of his own way. I love that I was saying that there is a bit of like the Mickey Rourke's the wrestler in there. But again, it's never to a point where I'm like, oh, this is a bit of a bummer. Ooh, I'm like, you're not staying on that moment too long. You're like, okay, we've had that character moment, we've had that beat, we've had that breath. Now back to wrestling the aliens, quick.
Yeah, I mean, we it was important to us to have to tell Rory's story and to have to kind of have that emotional connection with Rory, and it's been gratifying to hear from some podcasters and reviewers that underneath sort of the comedy and the ridiculousness and of having a steel cage around the planet and having wrestlers, suplexing the Secret Service at the White House. There's, the story about there's a human story sort of being told alongside all this craziness. It seems we got the balance right. But there's a million things, of course. We can look at our own work, and there's a million things that I could sit there and point at and wish we'd done differently, because you're your own harshest critic. But by judging from the response, it seems people really appreciate the story, the human story, as well as the all like I said, all the craziness and all the comedy. One of the things that I think that bothers me the most is, it's like you were saying, with a novel, you can really take your time to explore. You can really take your time with the novel as a writer. I mean, with a comic book, it's a fairly straightforward medium, but art does cost money and art does take time. And so there were things that we had to cut short. Like, I wish we could have done more with these wrestlers that we call 3D, which is a tag team that we meet. We really kind of had a lot more that we wanted to do with those guys. Mini Macho is a favorite character who he's probably the one character we didn't plan on having around a lot. He was supposed to just sort of had this presence in the first issue, brief presence in the first issue, and then be gone. And then we were like, no, we got it. Mini Macho's got to be along for the ride here. But so we got to explore his backstory a little bit, but we did have to be somewhat economical with our storytelling, and I wish we could have. I wish we could have done more. I wish every issue could have been 32 pages or more. But anyway, we're really, really gratified and happy with what we were able to do. I think it truly was an enjoyable read. I didn't put it down. I love the two time frames. Again, like you said, you were both fans of those two kind of eras, and I love that you kind of married them together. I think it's the 13-year time gap or time jump or whatever you have, and you see the kind of he's got the beer belly and stuff, and he's gone to seed. He's the alcoholic. I love the moment where it's they're like, yeah, he's fired. Rory's fired. He's gone. He's like, come on, give him a second chance. What could he have possibly done? And it was like, you had sex with a hooker in the car that we had as a grand prize. There's no coming back from that. And yeah, I think part of what I love is just that the fate of the entire planet is rest in the hands of kind of like the last person that you'd want, and it's a wrestler, and a washed up wrestler at that. And like nobody even knows where the hell he is. When Earth is invaded by Wrestletopia, he's just kind of off the map, off the radar. And to me, I love that premise, that
it's almost like, I don't know, pulling a wrestler out of my arse. The honky tonk man,
right.
And he's got to save the planet. People are like, who's the honky tonk man?
All on his shoulders, and you're like, oh Jesus.
Jesus, what, who even remembers the honky tonk man? I do. Don't ask me why, but that's the wrestler. I was like, random wrestlers. What random wrestler can I pull right out of my head right now? That's the one that comes to mind. So there you go. So you your production company is relatively new, is that right? Or within
Suspicious Behaviour Productions, which we created to make this comic book. But we're hoping in May, and it looks like May 11th, we'll do a Kickstarter to launch to put these comics really in print, really for the first time. All 6 issues collected in a trade volume with some of its own exclusive back matter. And then what we're really hoping then is to be able from there to sort of launch a different miniseries. We want to come back and do stories about Wrestletopia at some point, but we have a really cool idea for a new miniseries. And we're hoping that, to have a successful Kickstarter with Wrestletopia and be able to kind of, launch this other miniseries and keep doing more comics and more original stories and keep this going. So we're hoping Suspicious Behaviour Productions will be a small press publisher for a while, and kind of publish just really funny stories with some heart. Yeah, that's the goal. So.
Oh yeah, and I hope, I wish you. I'm going to put all the links to all the social media. I've got the website. I'll put it all in the show notes, so everyone can do that. And then when you've got your Kickstarter going, I'm more than happy to promote it, because to be honest, I think I want a physical copy. I don't know if don't know if it's coming over here, but if not,
absolutely, yeah. We're going to figure. I mean, international backers, or yes, please, we'll figure out the postage. I don't know.
Yeah,
we'll figure it out. But it's going to be a nice book. We're not going to print a cheap book. It's going to be a nice book, and like I said, there'll be an exclusive Kickstarter edition only. I think a hardcover probably, and with some exclusive content to it. And
I was going to say we can say trading cards.
Oh
yeah.
Is that an exclusive? Have I got an exclusive?
Yeah, just for the Kickstarter.
Yeah, just for the Kickstarter. Yeah. So I mean, that's a good point. Like I've just been, I collected trading cards and wrestling cards actually when I was a kid, and I kind of recently got back into it. But I mean, I love trading cards. So we found a way to just I mean, truly, they're not that difficult to make, like even nice trading cards. So we're going to make some exclusive ones for the Kickstarter, but have them be like real cards, right? Like if you collect these, they'll be like real, feel like real trading cards, and with the series and a number and everything else, and try, and so we're having a lot of fun with that. We still have some details to figure out, but yeah, I'm really excited about the trading cards. I want them.
Yeah, I'm again sold. You got my money. You got my money. I think there's like an example of some sort of trading cards in the back of one of the books. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We kind of use that as a jumping off point to create our own actual physical trading cards just for this Kickstarter. And also, I have to say, for like the trade, we have a beautiful painted cover from Ryan Lang, who is an artist who's worked with Disney and Netflix and sort of countless other major clients. So yeah, I'm really excited to, this is the next phase. I'm really excited to get this out there in the world.
Oh yeah, I'm excited to. I'm here for it. I'm here for it, and I hope all the people listening are here for it as well, because I know a lot of fans of comic books and the kind of stuff I talk about often. I've never talked about wrestling, but I am a big fan of wrestling. I tend to watch more AEW.
Yeah.
My current favorite wrestler is Luchasaurus. He's called. Genius gimmick, good wrestler. He's like 7 feet tall, 6'7", something like that. But he can move like a luchador as well, and he looks like a dinosaur. What's not to love?
I've heard his name, and I think I've seen his picture and seen his look, and it's a great gimmick. We saw a commercial for it the other night, my wife and I had fun telling her that Jungle Boy is Luke Perry's son of the AEW. Matt and I we sort of follow wrestling kind of like through social media, and we're kind of aware of what's going on. So it's also interesting. It's like you talk about how you really, wrestling was really in your wheelhouse, which we didn't necessarily know when we reached out, but that's part of the fun. Is like we'll approach people about possibly taking a look at the comic book, and sometimes you get people that are just like, hey, this is a cool story. I'm not into wrestling, but this is a cool story, thanks. And then sometimes you get people for whom like they haven't thought about wrestling in a long time, but they loved it growing up, and you would never know. Like they're like an investment banker or something, and they're like, oh man, I used to watch wrestling with my dad, and so they really dig the comic for that reason. And then you get like the closet wrestling fans who like there's nothing publicly about them that where they talk about wrestling, but they're like, oh my god, I love wrestling, I watch it all the time. Thank you, thanks for this comic. But it's really fun to see where people kind of land on that.
Yeah, I think it's a very unique kind of. I mean, people ask me. I'm not really a sports guy. I'm not really into like sports and stuff. It doesn't really interest me. I mean, I watch like films about sportsmen and sports and stuff, but I tend not to. It's never really grabbed me. Kind of professional sports, but the drama and the showcase and the storylines and the characters of wrestling has always kind of lit my fire. Because of that, because of the showmanship, because of all that involved, and obviously in regular sports you don't really have that. Maybe in boxing a little bit. I think there's a little bit of that, but that's again a slightly different animal. But that's what gravitated to me as a kid. Like it's loud, it's brash, it's flashy, it's colorful. Like it's got everything you want, and there are heroes and villains, and you've got these grand epics. Your WrestleManias, or Bash at the Beach, or whatever event you want to. Again, I'm just pulling random, wrestling knowledge.
Slamboree.
I like the name of your events, like a Galacto Massacre. I love it.
I think it starts off with the Summer Slamabration. That's what it was for me too. I mean, just because I got into wrestling again in the late 70s. 1979, I was 7 years old, so I'm full on in like wrestling is real. Wrestling is unscripted, unchoreographed. There's no acting. There's no characters. This is really happening. And they were superhero. I mean, they wore masks, right? They leapt from high places. They'd fall, they get hit with chairs and they'd bleed, or they'd get a pile driver and they'd get back up, right? So it was really like watching a superhero and a supervillain bash each other around for 15 or 20 minutes. And then of course, with the storylines, good eventually would conquer evil in one, form or another. And I to your question earlier, I mean, I really dug comics too, but the wrestlers were the superheroes in the flesh, right? They breathed fire or green mist, some of them. And it was incredible, and eventually you kind of figured out that real fights last like 30 seconds, right? Like when people really punch each other.
When I'm in a fight, yes, quite easily. I'm down for the count.
And it's still fun. They're still, and what's incredible today is the athleticism of some of these guys. I mean, it's just like watching, this combination sometimes of Cirque du Soleil meets, UFC. It's just amazing.
Yeah, I don't know. Like now, I don't know if a Hogan or an Ultimate Warrior could get over, because like those were guys who had larger than life personalities, but really didn't have a large move set to bring to the ring.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't watched a lot of Brock Lesnar as a move, but I mean, but the guy can really fight. Like he can breathe. He's a UFC.
I'm pretty sure Brock Lesnar just doesn't talk in his interviews. I think that's all Paul Heyman. He's just like,
yeah. That's why they matched him with a man. You don't see managers as much anymore. But when if some Brock Lesnar just does not have mic skills, so you needed to bring Heyman in to prop him up in that department.
Yeah, and then it makes in a way it's a perfect marriage, and it makes sense for those two kind of personalities and stuff. But there's a lot of, I feel like there's a lot of complaints about wrestling now and the modern day wrestling, and but then sometimes I also think that when the wrestling companies give them the fans what they want, they still complain. There's a lot of that as well.
I haven't watched. I don't follow it, so I'm not qualified to really have much of an opinion there, but I don't see a ton of tweets where people are like, hey, last night's show was awesome. It had everything I wanted. It's more the opposite, but people are still watching, and so it's thriving, and it's really fascinating how they'd be able to keep people's interest in this age where everybody knows. Where we're all smarks, right? We're smart marks, and we sort of know or think we know, how wrestling works, and it's bigger than ever. So they must be doing something right.
Yeah, definitely. Like there's they're doing very well. I remember I watched one of the events recently with Rey Mysterio, and it was the event. It was the event where he had his eye pulled out. I was like, I can suspend my disbelief a little bit.
Yeah,
but
let's see the
eyeball still on it.
You didn't see the eyeball. That's the thing. He basically, I think it was Seth Rollins. I think it was. He basically got the steel steps and just got the corner of the steel steps and just rammed his eye into it several times, and then he obviously swallows some soup and then spits it out like he's vomiting, because he's like, I've took out his eye. I wonder what was going to happen.
I had the same reaction. Like, it seems really unnecessary. Just have a good match. I think they used to call that the loser leaves town match, right? Like, lose because he's already going to retire, or he's already been hired by another promotion. So you have a loser leave town match. We all know his eyeball's not really being taken out. What freaked me out, and I just kind of saw a clip of the finish, was kind of like, well, what if he accidentally? It's so hard. Even great wrestlers, you're going to make a mistake. I mean, it's really hard. Like, what if you accidentally ram his eye in that corner for real, and he really does lose? That would be horrible and tragic and not fun, not cool. No. If he really did, lose his eye. Like, I don't want to see this. I don't want to.
It's a bit much, even for my taste. Again, like it's the pageantry of it, I think. And again, if you. I grew up in that kind of attitude era. It was all swearing and beer swilling and all that sort of stuff, and the violence of it. But it never got to the point where I was like, yeah, this is stupid. I enjoy a buried alive match. Obviously, it's totally ludicrous, but it's fun, it's different, it's bizarre, it's a bit weird. I'll always take them with a pinch of salt. But was it a good match? It was a good match. Regardless of how weird the story got or how bizarre the circumstances are or the characters are, but yeah, no, I love wrestling, and I absolutely loved this book. So I really hope you do revisit Planet Wrestletopia, because it's great, and I'm looking forward to seeing more of your work as well. And again, get that once that Kickstarter's going, I'll be sending people your way, because they definitely want a piece of this. And if they don't want to get involved in the Kickstarter, the book is also available on Comixology as well.
Yeah. You can get the digital issues and enjoy them. And like I said, we talked a little bit about this exclusive bonus material that we won't put in the trade. We'll leave that for people who bought the single issues, and of course the trades we're doing with the Kickstarter will have their own sort of exclusive extra content, obviously. But you could enjoy the digital issues and get in on the Kickstarter if people want.
Do both.
There'll be some different content there that to have it make it worth your while. And the digital issues don't cost much. I think they're like $1.99 right now per issue. So
yeah, no, I highly recommend. I personally use Comixology. I buy a physical as well, so I do both. And I will certainly do both. I'll get that on Comixology because I want to have that just in my Comixology collection in my stash. I'm going to have that there, so I'm definitely going to buy that when next chance I get. Is there anything else you want to say before we finish about the book? Or I know we've not talked about the book directly, but I was kind of like, maybe I think I want people to go out and read this because I've enjoyed it as much as I imagine you guys have enjoyed creating it. But is there anything else you want to say? Any final thoughts?
Just Invasion from Planet Wrestletopia. You can check it out on Comixology now, and look for the Kickstarter on it. Should be May 11th. We'll keep people updated. And thanks for having us. We really appreciate it. And thanks to everyone out there who's supported the comic and took the time to read it and post their thoughts about it on YouTube or Instagram or wherever. We're really grateful, and we're looking forward to a lot of people have said they would love to have this in print. So we're looking forward to making that happen in May.
Drop that elbow in May. Absolutely. Matt, is there anything else you want to say as well?
No, just follow us on our various social media outlets. We are probably the best place to reach out is Twitter. Or, we actually, I've been maintaining a fairly active Tumblr presence. Ooh. Although if you've ever been to Tumblr, it's not a very social media platform. But if you enjoy tons of, old school wrestling content and some comic book content, follow us on Tumblr.
Matt is very good at tumbling. He's very good at it. I cannot understand what I'll never understand Tumblr for the life of me.
Yeah, I have a Tumblr, but I don't particularly use it. I think I share the episodes on Tumblr, but it doesn't really. I don't see much people coming back to me where the other social medias I do. So, I mean, I'm a good Tumblr as well. I tend to fall over a lot, so that's my skill. I can just bounce back up, much like some of these wrestlers. But yeah, I really hope, wish you all the best, wish you all the success. I would really like to see a Invasion from Planet Wrestletopia video game that you guys write as well. That's what I want to see, because I want to see all the random characters. I want to play as Dominatrix, and all the other mini matchups.
Do you want a beat 'em up or do you want a fighting game?
Ooh, good question.
Well, it's in the long-term plan. Trust me, but we'll have to get the movie franchise going with Rock or Stone Cold Steve Austin or John Cena, somebody like that, and then the video game where you just wrestle your way through, Washington D.C. and
the water park. That was one of my favorite scenes. When they fight all the wrestlers at the water park was phenomenal. But yeah, thank you again for inviting me. It's been great. It's been great chatting to you guys. I know this is a little difficult to organize with you guys living all over the show and me over here and everything. But it's been great to chat to you on Zoom and get to know you as well and see your handsome faces.
Well, thank you, Dan.
Well, thank you, Dan.
Thanks for having us.
Okay. Well, I'm just going to tell everyone where to find you, and then we'll sign off finally. Well, where to find me. You've talked about yourself far too long. I've got to talk about me.
Yeah.
This is my show. It's my show.
Please do.
So you can find me on Facebook. It's at Secret Bores. Twitter, it's at Dan_Bores. Instagram is SpiderDanSecretBores. And when you interact with me, don't forget to use the hashtag #PrepareForPrattle. And for everything else you need to know about the podcast, swing over to SpiderDanAndTheSecretBores.com on the World Wide Web to email me, read reviews, and learn how you can support the podcast as well. And speaking of supporting the podcast, I'd like to thank my patrons on Patreon. I am Jack's Musings, Paul Meller, Max Byrne, Tony Farina, and Scott Hodgson. For their continuing donations. It is very much appreciated and helps Prattle World keep on turning. Again, thank you guys. It's been wonderful. It's been great. I will get this out. This will be out my time about 6 a.m. on Friday. So I'm gonna do some quick editing. I'm gonna get it up on Friday for you.
So it'll be ready to go by the time we wake up on Friday.
Oh yes, oh absolutely. You'll find it, and I'll have tagged you and all sorts. It'll probably wake you up at 3 or 4 a.m. all the buzzing. You'll be like, who is this guy? What's he doing?
I'll be waiting.
Well, we don't have a huge Twitter presence, but we will, of course, enthusiastically.
Yeah,
work out any way we can.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think we will probably just wait. I think on the West Coast of the U.S., it's what I'm told is that the best time for social media is between like 1 and 3 p.m. somewhere our time. So probably if we ignore you for a couple hours, we're not ignoring you. We're just waiting so that people actually wake up and will pay attention to the tweet or whatever.
Don't worry, I'm used to being ignored. I'm cool. Right, yeah, that's us. Well, thank you again, and hope you all the luck with everything and the Kickstarter. I'll be keeping my eyes peeled for all your future stuff. Thank you again, and have a great day.
You too. Take it easy.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.